It was December 1960, and John F. Kennedy had just won the presidency in one of the closest elections in U.S. history. As president-elect, he was enjoying a brief holiday retreat with his family at their luxurious compound in Palm Beach, Florida. The Kennedy estate, a sprawling property on the edge of the Atlantic, was a place of comfort and tradition, but it was about to become the scene of a chilling close call. Richard Paul Pavlick, a 73-year-old former postal worker from New Hampshire, had made up his mind. He was going to assassinate John F. Kennedy. Pavlick was consumed by hatred and paranoia. He believed Kennedy was a threat to America, not just because of his wealth and privilege, but also because of his Catholic faith. To Pavlick, Kennedy's presidency represented a dangerous takeover by the Catholic Church. Fueled by conspiracy theories and deep-seated bitterness, Pavlick meticulously planned the downfall of the new president. He decided to kill Kennedy using his car as a mobile bomb. Pavlick's plan was to load his car with dynamite and detonate it near Kennedy, sacrificing himself in the process. Pavlick began by gathering the tools for his deadly mission. He purchased sticks of dynamite, likely from local suppliers in New Hampshire, where such materials were easier to obtain for industrial purposes. He packed his car with 7 sticks of dynamite and would drive nearly 1,500 miles south to Palm Beach, Florida. Upon his arrival, Pavlick located the Kennedy compound and began stalking the president-elect to learn his routines. For several days, Pavlick shadowed Kennedy, observing his movements in and out of the family compound. He knew the president-elect often attended Mass and that his motorcade frequently traveled along the local roads. Pavlick parked outside the Kennedy home multiple times, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. On the morning of December 11, 1960, Pavlick believed his moment had arrived. Kennedy stepped out of the family home with Jackie and their 2 young children. They were heading to church, and Pavlick watched as JFK waved goodbye to his family. Kennedy was just feet away, completely unaware of the car loaded with dynamite parked nearby. Pavlick sat in his vehicle, finger hovering over the detonator. He could have ended Kennedy's life right then and there, taking down not just the president-elect, but likely members of his family and anyone else nearby. But then Pavlick hesitated. Seeing Jackie and the children, he decided to hold off. He later claimed he didn't want to harm the family, just Kennedy himself. Frustrated but undeterred, Pavlick left the scene, still determined to carry out his deadly mission. While Pavlick was plotting, authorities back in New Hampshire were growing suspicious. The local postmaster in Pavlick's hometown had noticed his erratic behavior in the weeks leading up to his departure. Pavlick had been openly ranting about Kennedy and had made ominous comments about doing something big. When Pavlick abruptly left town, the postmaster contacted the Secret Service. The tip set off alarm bells. Federal agents quickly began tracking Pavlick, piecing together his movements and his potential threat to Kennedy. By the time Pavlick reached Palm Beach, he was already on their radar. On December 15, 1960, Pavlick's luck ran out. Acting on intelligence, local police and Secret Service agents intercepted him in Palm Beach. Pavlick was pulled over, and when officers inspected his vehicle, they discovered the dynamite packed inside. The bomb was ready to detonate, and Pavlick freely admitted his plan to assassinate the president-elect. Had Pavlick not been stopped, the consequences could have catastrophically altered American history. Experts later confirmed that the dynamite was powerful enough to not only kill Kennedy, but also cause massive destruction to anyone and anything nearby. Pavlick was arrested and charged, but he never stood trial. Authorities declared him mentally unfit, and he was committed to a federal psychiatric hospital. He remained in custody for several years before being quietly released in 1966. Despite his release, Pavlick lived out the rest of his life in obscurity, his name largely forgotten in the public consciousness. The Secret Service worked to keep the story out of the headlines at the time. They were already facing criticism for their handling of presidential security, and news of such a close call would have been devastating. It would not be for many years that the details of Pavlick's plot became widely known. If Pavlick hadn't hesitated on December 11, 1960, the United States would have lost its youngest elected president before he even took office. The near miss in Palm Beach was a stark example of the rising tensions and dangers that would define the Kennedy presidency. The Palm Beach scare was not an isolated incident, but the opening act in a tumultuous narrative that culminated in Dallas 3 years later, while Pavlick's arrest prevented tragedy that day in December of 1960. It would only delay the shadows that hung over the presidency John F. Kennedy.